Hello everyone, I'm Sophie and I'm currently at Kecara Forest Retreat, Bentong, Malaysia. And this is the book that I'll be sharing from, Tales My Lama Told Me, by Pastor David Lai. The stories within were told to him by our Guru, His Eminence, the 25th Sam Tuku Rinpoche. Today I'll continue reading from the chapter 13, Childhood Buddhas, on page 121. Let's go to a picture to share with you. There you go, picture of green Tara. Okay, page 121. I always advise my students to promote the Buddha images that are on sale in the stores. I tell them to buy them and bring them home or give to people. I never think of selling Buddha images as a business. I would never think of doing that. As you can see, it has been a real passion for me ever since I was young. I genuinely wish to give Buddha images to people. It is something that has been very strong in me since my childhood. I just don't know why I believe in it so much. Perhaps it came from a previous lifetime, or it just came from nowhere. It goes nowhere, and I am still nowhere. I really love Buddha Shakyamuni too. I would Xerox pictures of Buddha Shakyamuni in copious amount to give to people. I think most of you would think that I was such a strange kid, and my stepmother thought so too. I would do all these things and my stepmother would watch me. She would freak out, of course, and beat me up because of that. She told me I couldn't do these things and she would put me down by calling me a weirdo. She would also beat me up when she found me with all these pictures. She would say over and over, "What do you do with all this? But why? Why?" She just couldn't accept what I was doing. So I stashed all these pictures in a hidden place that would still be within reach for me when I needed to give them to people. I always had something to give away to people. I don't know why, but I have always felt that I was some kind of Lama. You see, I knew that when people have an audience with a Lama, the Lama always has something to give away to them. It was all part of a strange fantasy that I had when I was young. I don't know why, but I have always particularly liked Kuan Yin. I didn't know much about Kuan Yin at that time, but I have always thought she looked gentle and compassionate. Little did I know that I would one day be in Malaysia and be among Chinese people who have an affinity with Kuan Yin. I would see Kuan Yin on everybody's altar when I travel around Malaysia. I have had a Kuan Yin picture for over 30 years now, and it is among my favorites. I have kept this particular picture well because I prayed to her a lot in my childhood. That makes this Kuan Yin picture very old, and it has a lot of significance for me. I have a lot of pictures here with me that survived through the years. One of my favorites is the tantric deity Heruka. I remember as a little boy how I totally freaked out when I saw him. Heruka Chakrasamvara, what a neat Buddha. I was just so amazed that he was a Buddha. He could be doing it with Rajarogini all the time and get away with it. I remember I had all these pictures with me when I carried them across America in my bag. I had two bags, one full of Dharma books, pictures, pendants, and Dharma stuff, and another filled with my clothes. When I ran away, I was thinking of finding a mountain or a cave somewhere in the wilderness so I could enter into meditation and perform intense practices. That was my main reason for running away from home. I did not succeed in my first attempt, but I made three runaway attempts. I was on the third and final attempt that I managed to run all the way to Los Angeles. Amid the urban sprawl of the city, I searched for a Dharma center just like the one that I used to go as a kid. In the end, I joined the center, which belonged to Geshe Sotrim Geltsen. It was because of Geshe-la that I then had the great fortune to meet Kapje Zong Rinpoche, and it was Zong Rinpoche who recognized me as a reincarnate Lama. It was due to Zong Rinpoche that I became a monk and later joined Ganden Monastery in South India. From the time I made it to Los Angeles, I was totally on my own. While hitchhiking across the country, I slept outdoors and ate scraps of food. I would beg for food and sleep in cardboard boxes with plastic bags as a blanket. I did all that for the Dharma and have never regretted my decision. I would rather have died than to live at home, go to college, and get married. I told my parents that I would rather die, and they thought I was crazy. But I didn't care as I already knew what I wanted to do. I used to keep a picture of the 8 auspicious signs along with the other pictures. I don't really know why, but I always thought that it was quite cool. I would draw them over and over again. I really like Rajapani as well, but his pictures are really hard to come by. I searched in the library for a long time until I found this picture in some encyclopedia and I photocopied it quickly. Then I placed this picture on my secret altar and worshipped him among the many pictures I already had. I even had the Guru tree, which I found many years ago in a Dharma book. This was the best Guru tree picture I had ever seen, so I had it on my altar as the object of my prayers. At that time, I thought that it was incredibly neat that I could make 3 prostrations to all of these Buddhas and get all of the merits of prostrating to all of them, instead of prostrating to just one Buddha. As a child, I used to think that and get all excited about it. It was the idea of getting away with shortcuts and still getting enlightened that really got me excited. I know you must be thinking how un-Rinpoche like, but let's put it this way, at least I was still excited about Dharma. I recall that I also had a very precious picture of His Holiness Kapje Trijang Rinpoche, but it is not with me now. It must still be in another box somewhere. I found that picture of His Holiness many years ago when I was very young, and I don't know why I was so excited. I photocopied the picture, kept it really well, and prayed to him every day. I didn't know who he was or anything, but I just loved him. Needless to say, the prayers came to fruition when I met his main disciple, Kapje Zong Rinpoche, years later in Los Angeles. In school, the teacher who inspired me the most was my art teacher, Mrs. Gerber. I wish I could find her again. I would really like to send her a beautiful letter to tell her how she has affected my life. I miss her very much. She knew exactly what was going on at home because I eventually told her. You know, what was incredible about her was her sensitivity and perception. I had this amazing experience with her in school. One day during class, she wanted to draw a picture graph, which was to use pictures without words to tell a story. So I drew 6 pictures in 6 slots on an A4 sheet of paper. I drew a story about a person going for meditation. First, I drew a person walking towards the mountains, and in the next slot, he finds a mountain and was in a cave. Within the next slot, I drew the seasons, 4 smaller slots within one slot that showed rain, snow, and sunshine. After that, I showed him with longer hair and thinner. In the next slot, I drew some animals around him. Finally, in the last slot, I drew a neat picture of him in the cave meditating with long matted hair, with one ray of light going from his heart to a deity in the sky. This deity looked Indian-like and had 6 arms. I didn't know who it was when I drew it. She was a six-armed deity sitting on a lotus, and this ray of light from the meditator's heart went to her heart, and they connected. That was the end of my picture graph. I drew that in my sixth grade. It was so cool. I wish I still had that picture with me. Throughout my life, I wanted to go to a cave and meditate. Even as a child, I believed that if I went to a cave, meditated, and identified with the deity, I would become one with the deity. This was why I drew the picture graph. That was what I knew as a kid, so that was what I drew most of the time. My art teacher belonged to the 60s, the so-called hippies, flower people generation. She always wore very colorful clothes and didn't care what people thought of her, as she was very into the moment and into art. She loved expressing things through art. She was such a great teacher. I showed her my picture when I finished it. I must say my artwork stood out from all the other kids as they were drawing very ordinary scenes like going shopping at the mall and stuff. When I showed her my picture, I tried to explain what it was about. Mrs. Gerber, let me explain this to you. She stopped me from explaining, and she just stared at the picture. She was a very tall lady with long fingers. She held the picture and just looked at it silently. After a while, I asked her again, "Can I explain it to you, Mrs. Gerber?" She just nodded her head and said, "I perfectly understand. This is just wonderful." I replied, "Well, this person became one with the deity." "I understand," she said. I think she wasn't shutting me up because she didn't want to hear me. She totally understood and was enjoying it. I never forgot that. I didn't see this stuff in any books or anything on TV. That was really what I thought would happen if I went to a cave and meditated. That was why I always thought about meditating in a cave. That was why I have always had a big fascination with caves, mountains, and lakes. I always imagine meditating amid such landscape. It seems like yesterday when I was sitting in my room, quietly drawing. Can you imagine me as a kid drawing all these? I was just this little strange kid, drawing little Buddhas and making Buddha pendants to give away to people. At that time, they just thought I was just a weirdo, and they told me, "I'm not going to wear no green god." I would try to explain, "But it's a goddess." They would scream back at me, "I don't care." It is really hilarious now when I think back to all of it. And that's the end of the chapter. And as you can, as shared by Rinpoche, imagine how strongly he was connected to the Buddha even at such a young age. And what about all of us? Well, we must have some connection because we are drawn to the Dharma too, right? So let us work at it and have that strong motivation that we will continue practicing and have the conducive conditions to, really, really give our all in our Dharma practice. Yeah, thank you for sharing your time with me. And please do join me as I read another new chapter in my next sharing. We'll finish this with a completion dedication in Tibetan. Jang yo san chu rin po shi ma ke pa nam ke yu shi ke pa nam pa me pa yang go ne go do pe wa shu to ni to rin po shi ma ke pa nam ke yu shi ke pa nam pa me pa yang go ne go do pe wa shu da su ji ni sa pa ke wa di ta ta dro wa go na ka pa dang je pa je su no san tra pa yi tam ping in po rin do sa se shu ke wa kun tu yan da la ma da dra mi chu ki pa lang long chu chi sa dam nang yi ya ta ra zo ne do je chang yi ngo pa nga tu su ke wa di yu do da la ma sang ge dru yu ne dre wa chi kya ma lu pa de sa la go pa shu Choki ga posunga pa, chosunam pa pe bala, geki sama siwadan, tunki malu sangwasho. Dadam sengi dusundan, triwi songi latini, gewa losan trapai, tampayu riva, giushi, ni modele sendele, ni migunyandele shi, ni sintatu dele pel, kunchu songi jingilo, kunchu songi ngoduso, kunchu songi trasi sho. Jesu lama kusen rapting ching, nam katrini chochuke padang, losam tempe dromi sapsongi, Troy Musa Tatoni Gyushi Gangri Rawe Koe Shinkamde Pendan Dewa Malu Gyoene Cherensi Wanten Singat Soyi Chapeshi de Parude Gyushi Home Tompe Ngotro Malopa Dende Dala Salduso Kodang Denpa Longshot Nam Kepa Sushik Shukten Sel. Thank you again, and I do hope that you join me for my next session.